Ellen, and Ellen is an oil painter who's quite well known for her coastal and her landscape. She does beautiful work, very soft and mood evoking work. She also teaches at the Mendocino Art Center, and we'll be doing that again live starting in the fall. So it's a pleasure to have you, Ellen. Welcome.
Oh, thanks so much. This is nice to be here. I really enjoyed being a participant in the Frank Bette Plein Air Festival. It's been a great experience for me. So it's nice to be asked to do a demo today. So I've got a little studio in San Carlos. I'm in there right now, and it's the place is called Art Bias. And so I've got a couple cameras going. So I hope you guys will have good view for what I'm doing. So I'm just going to switch you now to the other camera, which is behind me. There you go. So this is the canvas that I'll be working on. So this is the painting that I'll be demoing. So I worked and did this, I don't know, a couple weeks ago. It's 11 by 14, and I'll be demoing 11 by 14. And what I mentioned earlier, it's been one of my favorite subject matters during COVID is to paint these sunsets. And I just like the peacefulness of the marsh. I've been going over to Coyote Hills and Don Edwards over in the East Bay, Fremont area. And I've been trying to go like at dusk when the light's changing. And I'm working on a series actually of paintings with the water being kind of reddish and stuff. So I really enjoy that. Actually, you can kind of see some of my photos, my photo references here. So I work a lot plein air, but I also come back to my studio and work from photos, for a larger scale too. So to save a little time, I just did the outline for the painting that I'll be working on today. And how I start my work is I do a watercolor wash first. And well, it's not a watercolor wash, it's an oil painting wash, but it looks like watercolor. So I generally start with the transparent red oxide. And I usually put this in the sky, believe it or not, and a lot of times in the water, because I've just found the skies tend to be cooler, even though sunsets are warmer. It's always nice to have kind of a warmer base before you put the cools on. And kind of the trick with these things is sometimes you get a little bit too much I'm just mixing it with Gamsol, which I'd recommend. It's probably one of the safest turpentines out there, terpenoids. And if it's a little bit too dark, you can always, these great paper towels, just take a little bit of it off. But it's almost like doing a little bit of a tonal painting before you start putting on the majority of the paint. So I'm going to put this again in the marsh area here. This is where my water is going to go. And I'm working on the canvas that I did the original painting on was from Atlantic Art Source. And the one that I'm using now is Pintura, which is a slightly firmer panel. So every time you use different materials, it reacts a little bit differently. So the Atlantic Art Source is nice because it lets me layer a little bit more. So I'm going to try to get this loose enough so I can do that too.
Is that a textured canvas?
It's a cotton, it's double primed acrylic, but it's a little bit smoother than the other one. So I'm going to actually add some sap green to the transparent red oxide. And I'm just going to slightly put in some of the reeds. So I don't want it to be real thick paint at this point. And I kind of like when the paint runs. So it's kind of a balancing act to get enough paint on there, but also create that kind of runny feeling. And one thing that's nice about this too is, after you finish the wash, you can kind of go back and see if you like, the composition before you start putting on like heavy layers of the paint. And I'm happy to answer any questions. So, and I'm actually working on a larger painting of this. So sometimes if I like my studies, I'll work larger. So I'm currently working on a 20 by 24 of this scene. And it was funny to realize, I don't know if the light or what I was reading, but my marshland tended to be a little bit too green, even though I put a lot of brown and reds in it. So one of the factors working with a lot of greens is they can have a little bit too much chroma. And especially with a sunset scene, they have a lot more red in there. So so I will lose my edge a couple times. And I think that's kind of the fun of it. I don't want to lose my total composition, but sometimes the edge will move slightly. So I'm going to put a little bit of Viridian on top of that with a touch of red, a little bit cooler in the back, maybe a little bit more red. So you can already start seeing my outline of my marsh area here. Okay. So a lot of times a good thing is to stand back a little bit and kind of look at what you're doing. You get caught up in just painting and staying on it, but so this to me needs to be a little bit more over here. So I'm just moving a little bit of this. Okay. So I'm going to put in the back hills. I'm just going to do kind of a cool wash. So ultramarine blue and a little alizarin crimson. I tend to like it a little bit cooler. So just be careful with how much alizarin crimson you put in.
Are there any brands of oil paints that you recommend?
You know, it's funny. I use a couple varieties. I like gambled oils quite a bit. I use those in the field mostly. And then I also like classic oils. There's a company over in the East Bay that they make them in kind of the caulking tools, which is very handy for studio work. And then there's a couple colors that I really like from Sennelier. So those are kind of the three that I primarily work with. And you know, I have to say, oh, and I do have a couple Rembrandt colors. I like Rembrandt's Viridian. Gamblin's Viridian is a little bit more muted, and I kind of like a little bit more vibrancy. So I'm just going to put a little bit of a wash over the clouds too. So I'm also tapping into a little bit of the Payne's gray, and I find that when, especially for blues and purples, when it's a little bit too vibrant or has too much chroma in it, you just put a little transparent Payne's gray in there, and it knocks it down. It grays it down without taking the color away from it. So I want this light because this is going to change a little bit here. And I'm just trying to get a general frame of this outline of the clouds coming in here. So I will put in, just so it reminds me, I like when there's yellows, a lot of time I found it's nice to have that pure yellow wash underneath it. So I will put a yellow in here for the sun.
Ellen, do you use the this large palette for your plein air painting also?
I wish. So no, in fact, it was really hard for me. I love the Edge Pro, and I just got, I was using the EZL for many, many years. And I honestly would have gone back, but they had a problem getting the size that I wanted for a long time. And I went to the plein air convention and I liked the Edge Pro a lot, and I should have bought it because they were having a great discount and I just wasn't sure. And then I ended up coming home and I did travel overseas and I needed something really small. So they have a mini from the Edge and it worked really great. It's hard for me. I like having all my colors. In fact, they kind of make fun. And it worked well. And so when I came home from my trip, I actually ordered the large one from Edge Pro. And so I found that I can kind of work with that. A lot of times, you know, I like to pre-mix my colors a lot out in the field. Sometimes I'll pre-mix half of them just so I have a good start. So maybe, yeah, if we want to go towards just spotlight my palette, that would be great. So anyway, what I'm going to do is just let this dry a little bit and set up. I'm going to add a little bit more terp kind of down here so it kind of bleeds a little bit more so there's not any hard edges here. Okay, so one reason I pre-mix my colors is once you see all your colors on the palette, it's pretty easy to see like which color doesn't belong. It's almost like Sesame Street. You can really look and see, oh, that yellow is way too bright for the overall painting. Another thing is because I do this oil painting wash beforehand, it gives it, 10 minutes to kind of set up the paint. So I'm not going to go in and it's super wet. So I'm going to move my painting over here just so I can make sure I'm getting these colors good. But so with the sunset, a lot of times there's a lot of Viridian in the sky. So I'm usually going to take Viridian and then a little bit of the cobalt blue. And so you want to be thoughtful that I think most people know, from when you look up in the sky, it's a deeper blue. And as it goes down toward the horizon line, it gets a little bit of a lighter blue. There's a change. And so you also have to be aware that there's a change in the sky colors from left to right. So because in this painting, my focal point or my sun is going to be on the right side, the left side of my painting is going to be slightly cooler in the sky than it is going to be on the right side. So I'm just making a color there. I think this needs to be a little bit of yellow in here. A little bit more green. And I do find the sunset colors challenging because you need them to be strong because the sunset's so vibrant, but you just don't want to push it over the edge. So you're kind of on a fine edge mixing these colors. And especially you want to keep your values tight also. So we've got a green here. And then on the other side, there's a little bit more yellow to it. So I'm going to take Viridian again. Let's be a little more yellow, a little bit more white here. And color mixing is fun. I mean, I enjoy, I teach weekly oil painting classes too in Burlingame. And, I enjoy kind of helping I help with composition, but I really kind of help when the people are stuck with the color too. It's funny. So I'm sticking a little bit of red in here because it was a little bit too vibrant. So that's a pretty good color. So you can see right now that these two are harmonizing. They're not jumping out at you. So the next color is going to be the kind of the cloudy purplish colors on the bottom. So I took ultramarine and alizarin, some white, some of that Payne's gray. Sometimes it's a little bit too purple, so I'll put a little bit of the yellow ochre in there also, and it kind of mutes it down pretty nicely. Okay, I think that's pretty close to that. And then one color, actually, I have to say, this Richardson, let me see if I can hold it up properly. Okay, it's wonderful with, anyway, it's a Richardson color. So this one Richardson color like is Shiva Orange. And actually, Cindy Barron had introduced me to it. And she's, if you don't know her, she's an incredible painter and she does beautiful sunsets. So the Shiva Orange is great with the alizarin crimson.
Okay, let me.
And it makes kind of the warmth in my clouds here.
So Ellen, for those of us who are watercolor painters, how long does it take the paint to dry, oil paint?
Oh, it depends on how thick you put it on. Probably a week to 2 weeks. Like if you're doing it thin, if it's hot outside, it's going to dry much faster. If you're putting some palette knife on there, sort of some thicker impasto strokes, it's going to take longer than that. So yeah, that's a hard one to say. It kind of depends on the individual painter. And if you put it on really thick and it's a larger painting, it could take a couple months even.
Wow. So
Yeah.
you don't really layer or can you layer with your colors on top of each other?
Oh, you can definitely layer. Yeah. Yeah. And that's kind of why I start out with that wash in the beginning. So I'm trying to get a little bit of layer. And, some of the beautiful things is like, I don't know if you guys know Jennifer McChristensen, but she always starts out with, I think it's a Quindoxidon Rose wash, this hot pink wash under all her paintings. And it's gorgeous. I don't know how she can think of, how to do a painting on top of this wash, but she does. I mean, she does gorgeous work. And what's pretty about it is if you get it done correctly, you can have some of that wash filtering through and it just ties the whole painting together. So, if you do your wash correctly and you get your values, like I can already tell that my wash here is a little bit light, but the fun thing is when you layer it and you have that vibration of a thin layer of paint with a thicker layer on top. So I'm going into more of my upper sunset colors here. And I use titanium buff a little bit here too.
Yeah, we had Marie Massey do a demo a couple of months ago, and she had a hot pink undercoat as well.
Oh, nice.
Coastal scene, and you could just see the hints of the pink show through on the waves. It was really interesting.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I like her work. Yeah, she and I were just in a show with Deborah Hughes and Scully Gallery down Balboa Island, and we both won honorable mentions in their Ode to Spring show. And, and Marie did this great lily pad painting. So if you guys want to go on and see that show too, I think it's online. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So I've kind of got a lot of my sun. I try to mix the majority of them, and I will definitely go in and make adjustments as I go. But you can see all of them they're strong colors, but they're all harmonizing. This might be a little bit strong, but I'm just going to leave it. I might have to add some. Actually, I think I will. I'm going to add a little more white to that one. It just looks a little bit too dark to me already. So the greens, in my original painting too, I have some palette knife in this and I'm layering more colors on top, but I'm basically starting with the sap green and I'm putting cad red in there and then a lot of the yellow ochre. So the greens for a sunset are much warmer. So sometimes I don't put enough warmth or red into these colors, so I have to adjust it. Put a little more green in there. It's pretty similar. So I love my transparent red oxide too. So my dark will have that plus the sap green. It's a little too dark, so I'm gonna put a little bit of the yellow ochre in there. A little more of the sap here. And then I'm always trying to balance a little bit of a cool note. So I'm putting some Viridian sap and a little bit of red in there too, just so it's a little bit cooler. A little bit more red. So you can see, you know, how green this is. I've put in like 3 things of red and it's still too green. But you want to do it slow because you're going to change the color really quickly if you just put a big dollop of red in there. So to me, this, I'm finally getting that kind of color. So one thing is, you know, kind of be patient with the colors too. Don't rush it. So I'm going to make a little bit more of this orangey red color in here. One thing also about the sunsets that usually I do the next day because the paint is so wet is I do add a little bit of blue or purple across the painting at the bottom usually, because there is coolness. You want to balance that. Like I said, again, there's some coolness in the water. So I've got a pretty good orange color. That's good there. And I'm going to put a little bit more yellow in here. But I love my big piles of paint.
Can see why. It looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's fun. And then I'm going to do, that purple's pretty good. There's another layer of kind of ochre that I have over here that I kind of layer in on top of the green. It might be a little bit light there. We'll see. Yep, it's too light. Too light. So I'm adding a little bit of purple, dioxide purple in there. Yeah, okay. And then I will mix some of the blue just because hopefully I can get some of that on it today without it drying. So it's more of kind of a gray, purpley blue. So I usually use both reds in there. And the trick with this too is matching the value in the water. You don't want it to pop out too much. It's a little too purple. Adding some ochre in there. And I think I need it to be a little bit bluer. So I'm going to go back to the ultramarine. Little orange. Payne's gray. Payne's gray is great for blues. If you know the blue is too strong, it kind of knocks the edge off your blue, which is really nice.
Yeah, the first time I opened Payne's Gray, it looked more blue than gray.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a nice color. So I think that's pretty close. All right, so that's a good start. Does anybody want me to talk about my colors quickly as far as what I have in my palette, or?
Not getting any
Yeah, okay.
yes, there's a yes.
Is it? Yes, okay. So I'll just do them quickly. In fact, I need a little bit more of my, so I have, this is buff titanium that I'm just putting on right now. And it's almost, I use this kind of instead of the Naples yellow, I guess. I like it a little bit better. So the key really is you don't have to have all these paints. I've collected these because I've worked with different teachers and I seem to keep adding one from each teacher, which is terrible. But So this is the buff titanium, and these two are from Sennelier, and this is a soft warm gray. So basically you just need a warm and cool of each of the primaries. And so I have my lemon yellow and my cad yellow. I use the yellow ochre quite a bit. This is my special color that I just used for sunsets that I mentioned, which is the Shiva orange, cad red, alizarin crimson, Payne's gray, ultramarine blue, and cobalt blue. This is actually another Sennelier color that I just use for certain occasions, some of my seascapes. It's actually called a cool gray, but it looks like a light blue. These are a bunch of just mud piles. This is titanium white. I love this color. It's cad green, and it's great for a lot of the landscapes and the grasses. Viridian green, sap green. I have a little bit of dioxide purple, and then my transparent red oxide. So that's usually what I have on my palette in the studio. So I'm sure that's a mouthful. Okay, so if you want to go back to my canvas, that would be great. Or you can do it side. Yeah, back to the canvas, or you can do side by side. Okay.
Okay, we're on your canvas.
All right, awesome. So I'm going to go in, I'm going to make this bottom reeds just a little bit darker. My wash wasn't quite dark enough on this.
Ellen, it looks like if you can sharpen the focus a tad on your canvas, that would be great, if that's possible.
I can move it up a bit. I'm not sure if I can.
No, that's good right there. That's better.
Okay, I just wanted to make the bottom of the canvas has to be, yeah. All right, that sounds good. All right, I'm just going to put a little bit more on the bottom here. Okay, I'm going to actually start on the top of the sky. And I generally use a filbert brush for that. So it's almost like using kind of like a circular motion. So I'm going to start, it's a little bit dark still. I need a little more white in here. So like I said, I do adjust my colors.
That's a square brush, is that?
No, filbert, it's a round.
Oh,
it's a rounder edge is filbert, yeah.
Okay.
See, I'm already done. No, just kidding. And so I'm going to move over to kind of like, this is where more of my light's coming on this side. So it's a lighter value. So I'm starting to put this on this side here. And I want to blend the colors. So I'm just kind of scrubbing it in right now. All right, so I generally have this in. One thing that's important is to kind of try to get your canvas covered and then keep going back in and refining the details and things like that. So this is a little bit dark too. So I'm putting kind of this, I can tell my canvas is still wet because I'm picking up some of the color, and sometimes that's a good thing and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it makes really good marks on there, and sometimes it causes problems, but I think we're okay. The best thing I've found, honestly, is to do the wash for a couple paintings, then go home at night, and then you come back the next day and it's set up really nicely. So sometimes I do that and sometimes I don't. It just depends on the time that I have. So if you look at the sunset, you'll notice that there's kind of a dark cloud kind of over, usually over that, the sun. And there's varying degrees of warmth coming through the clouds. So I'm just looking at the shapes right now. I'm putting in a little bit more white because it's going to get a little bit softer coming through here. And one thing I have in my studio is you probably can't see it, but I turn around, I've got a mirror behind me. And so one thing great about having a mirror is I can look back in the reflected, see values a little bit better. And I also can see if the shape is working with the reflected part of that. So let's see, some of the red coming in here. So the red is going to kind of come up, it's warmer right by the sun there. And these are just, to me, like they're kind of fun, happy colors. So I really do enjoy painting sunsets. So it's going to be definitely more brilliant as the closer we get to the sun, and it's going to start to cool off or not be as brilliant on the left side.
So there's a question about the CAD yellow. Is that a light, medium, or deep?
I've got a medium CAD yellow. Yeah.
I'm gonna add your spotlight, Ellen, for your side by side here. Getting a request to see them side by side.
Oh, okay.
So we'll see how that looks.
Sure. Yeah, and you can see that I am adjusting my colors a little bit. And I love painting clouds too. That's one, even that they're not sunset, it's kind of one of my favorite things to do. So I'm going to get a little bit more orange in here. So the orange is going to kind of come up a little bit more through here. And a little bit more of the red coming through here. So I've got a lot more work to do with this, but I'm not going to fuss with the top. I'm just going to try to get the majority of my colors in, and I'm going to come back and fine tune it. The importance with clouds too is it's the edges that really matter and keep these clouds soft. So that I usually spend a lot of time working on the edges for these things. So underneath the cloud is more of a warmth. So
how do you keep the edges soft?
So I have a special brush, and it's I think it's a mongoose from Rosemary Brushes, and it's just very soft. But honestly, you don't need. You can take a dry brush, and so you're basically going to see the edges, and you're just going to soften them a bit. So the clouds are really. So a lot of times what I'll do is like, okay, I don't like that shape. I'll come back with the soft brush, take that green color again, and go, okay, I want to change that shape a bit. And so what the nice thing about these brushes is they don't pick up a huge amount of paint. So it's very delicate coming back and changing it. So you can see.
Yeah, now I can see the difference.
See how nice that is versus how sharp these edges. So I will come back and I will spend a lot of time on these edges. You know, with the demo right now, it's, you know, I want to make sure I get a lot of it covered in the right time. But yeah, I will spend time doing that. So I'm going to put a little bit of the center of the sun. I usually do with that lighter lemon yellow. So I usually wait till the end, to be honest, but I'm going to put a little bit of that in right now. So that tends to be a little bit more yellow through here, but I'm getting ahead of myself. I need to get that red in there first. So this looks a little bit vibrant. I'm taking a little bit of the green. You know, red and green are opposites, so it kind of tones it down a touch. A little bit dark. I want it softer. So a little bit coming in through here. And you know, I don't have that special brush, and I can play with the edges a little bit as I'm going. You know, I just like at the end to take a little more time and work on the edges, especially of the clouds. So this red's going to come up a little bit more here. So it's going to be a little bit more muted on this side here. And if you want to change, you know, the size of the clouds, you come back in with your dark. So I'm constantly working, you know, from positive and negative, the shape, sides of the shape here. I don't want anything too straight. Nature is more irregular than it is like these perfect lines and stuff. Okay, so I'm going to put a little bit of the orange coming in here. So it's a little bit more muted on this side here. I'm adding a little bit more red. And as I get over to the left, I mean the right, I'm sorry, I'm going to put a little bit more orange. It's going to be brighter on this side. Okay. So I'm going to look again the back. So it's starting to build up. So the color, my purple is probably a little bit dark. We'll see here. I'm going to put some of the yellow on it. These last touches, usually in the sky, I do save for the end because I like, it's almost like you don't want to ice your cake too soon, but I am putting them, you know, for this demo, I'm putting them in a little bit sooner than I would normally put them in. This side to me is a little bit too strong still. So I'm going to tone it down just slightly. You can see I put too much blue in there right away. So I need to back it up here. Okay. All right, I'm gonna go down to the mountain. So I generally get this in a little bit cooler at first. And then I do put more of like a warm tone because it does reflect the warmth of the sunset. But I find that putting the purple down first, maybe a little bit dark.
So Ellen, is the process of beginning with the sky and the background typical for you?
A lot of times I do start with the sky, but I shouldn't I should get more of this laid in instead of working on the details, just to get, so you can see the overall relationships of all the colors together. It's a little bit easier that way. So I'm not going to put the red on top of it, but generally I do start with the sky a lot because the sky kind of dictates what's going to happen on the landscape. It's like what kind of light you're having. And I'm using a long flat here. So I'll work on the edges. You want everything to be kind of soft on that mountain, but you can see just putting that cool mountain in, the orange is really reading off of that nicely. I think my sky on one side actually could be a bit darker. I'm going to do that really quickly. A little bit too dark. And I need a little bit more purple over that red. It was too hot in the sky here. Just toning this down a little bit. Okay. All right, let me get down some of the green. So you do have to be careful with these greens sometimes because you want enough of a warmth of the red in there. So I'm gonna put a little bit more red in. And green and red are complements. So it's, if you get the colors right, it's a nice combination. How you guys doing? Is this making sense?
Yeah, so far, great.
Good.
You put the green and it made that the yellows really pop.
Oh, good. Yeah. Okay. Trying to bring it down a little bit here. All right, I'm going to get some of the other darker marsh colors in here. It's still
4 o'clock, Ellen. So I wanted to, it's about 3:52.
okay.
So I wanted to alert you of the time.
Okay.
If there's a time that you want to take a break, let us know. If not, That's fine too.
Okay, I'll let me finish the bottom of the reeds here and then we'll take a break. So I'm just getting the darks in right now on the bottom of these reeds.
We have a comment that it's amazing how you get the aerial perspective starting in the background in the sky.
Oh, thanks. And have fun while you paint too. Like, I mean, I'll be totally honest with you. The original that I did with this, I was a little frustrated with it. I felt it wasn't moody enough. And so I got a lot of my base colors in. And then I took the palette knife and I started playing with, you know, adding more colors on top. And I really liked that. So it gave it a little bit more life. And I don't normally use the palette knife that much, but I'm learning to try different approaches and it creates really nice texture. So I'm just adding this across right here. This marsh is gonna touch right here. And let me just put a little bit more over here.
Yeah, leaving those two little areas in the back makes it look like the whole thing recedes really well.
Oh, thanks.
Leaving some of the marsh, you know, in the far back, make it really elongates the whole painting.
Thanks. All right, so we can take like a 5-minute break if people want to just stretch their legs or get something to drink. And then I'm happy to proceed.
Great. And so everyone, if you want to come back at about a little after 4 o'clock, that'll be great. And we'll resume from then. So welcome back.
Hi, guys. So it's just softening a little bit of the back mountains and the back line here and kind of playing with the shapes of these clouds back here. Trying to get them to be a little bit softer edges.
So we wanted to let everyone know that Ellen has graciously agreed to auction off this painting. And we will we'll start the bidding at 150 and hopefully drive it up from there. And we will, I will let you know when the bidding is about to end.
Yeah, happy bidders. Yeah, sometimes the demos are good because it's nice to see the painting in person, to see the brush strokes and things like that. It's Zoom is awesome, but sometimes it's a little bit hard to get a good feel of the colors and what the artist is doing visual, you know, from a distance.
Do the oils have a color shift when they dry?
Sometimes the color of the oil will set, and what I use is it's like a varnish, a Kamara varnish, and it kind of sets the it deepens the darks. It just sets them down a little bit more and just gives it a little bit of shine. So I think I'm getting a pretty good effect here with the light coming off right here. And I just want to get into, I think what I'll do is I'll start getting into the water here, because then I can play with some of the edges. So I'm going to start with a small brush here. And I've always used filberts for most of the time I painted, but I've kind of just switched over to using the flat. So it's a little bit of a learning curve too, using the flats. And but I find they have a great variety of, that gives you better edge control too. So I kind of go back between the filberts for the sky, and some of these, the longs for more of the landscape work. So I'm just getting a little bit of a hint of the water back there. And I'm kind of starting off with a little bit of a mid-tone, and then I work up towards my lights. So it's a little bit warm. You gotta be careful too, when you put white into a color, it really tones it down quite a bit. And it cools it off also. So sometimes it's better to put a yellow or titanium buff in to make something lighter to start with. So I'm adding some more of my orange in here. Get a little bit lighter value coming in here. I like when this kind of hot pink peeks between the reeds. I need a little bit more of this color. Again, it's the alizarin plus that Shiva orange by Richardson's. A little bit more red.
So Ellen, you tend to use the titanium buff? Titan buff?
Yeah, I use that as a modifier too. Yeah, besides the white. So because red and green are opposites on the color chart, you can get a really nice vibration between the colors, the reeds of the marsh being the green here and a warm tone on the water. A lot of times the marsh, it's hard. It doesn't, you kind of have to get those final to-da shots on there because it doesn't read until you start putting the water lines across to see all the shapes. I'm just taking a look in the mirror to see how it's going. Okay. This is a little pink up here. So I've got most of it as a mid-tone right here, and I'll put the lights on top of it. I'm just trying to get most of the color in. Okay. All right, so then I kind of come back and I work again on the reeds. So now that most of the paint is on there, you can start playing kind of with the reflection colors coming in here. To me, it's a little bit dark. So with these flat brushes too, you can get some really nice effects. I'm pulling down the dark a little bit more. With these things, I want all soft edges. So I'm kind of reestablishing the edges as I go here.
And that's by using the tip of the brush to soften it?
Yeah. And I don't want the edge line of the marsh to be straight. You know what I mean? The reeds kind of go in and out a little more organically than just just having it be straight. And once the red is on there also, or the watercolor coming in here is a little bit easier to make these shapes. And you don't want to, with the reeds too, you kind of want to keep your shapes together. If you put too many individual reeds coming up, it gets confusing. You don't want to have too much detail. So I'm looking at kind of the overall shape. I'm looking at kind of where things end. So I am going to put, maybe it's both the purple and the blue. So there's some coolness in the back here. So I'm going to put a little coolness kind of over the pink water. It's receding back. And I've got a little bit of a cool note kind of coming through here. And the coolness just adds another dimension to it.
So the reeds in front are going to be closer.
Mhm.
How do you manage the, any advice for managing how you paint the reeds? Because it must be difficult to do it without sort of outlining each individual reed.
Yeah, so I'm grouping. You can see down here, this is like a group. And then I'm not finished, but I'm going to come back and just pick out a couple individual ones. But I'm not going to do every single reed. I haven't quite gotten there yet. So I'm just trying to get a little bit more of this cool. I'm actually able to get a little bit of the coolness. Sometimes you have to be careful because orange and blue are opposites, so you don't want your painting to get muddy. But it's important that you balance the two out. And like I said, usually I usually put this in the next day.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I'm not applying that much pressure. So I'm hoping that I can get a little bit of this in just so you guys can see what it looks like. All right. So a lot of times just even I'll take a smaller brush. You can start to see how I build it here. But just by putting the water line over, it changes the whole thing. I'll show you. So I'm going to take that warm color. And so here, I'm just going to have this be the water line. So you can start to see how that reflection goes down. So I'm starting to build where I want these water lines to come across.
Oh, that's neat to see how you do that.
Yeah, so then you can start seeing it come. So the top ones here, there's a little more purple coming across. There's a back edge here. It's a little too strong.
That's a neat way to establish that it's water without, that it's blue water.
Yeah, so it starts to read that the water's coming down that way. So I'll spend some time. It's fun to I'll break it a little bit. And I don't have it. So I'm going to go back and put a little bit of light or some red on the mountains a little bit here, see if it works. I need some warmth on the mountains, maybe a little bit lighter. because the sun's coming over the mountains. They're not just blue. So there's a little bit of coolness. So actually, I'm going to take that soft brush again. I think it's going to be easier because I don't want to put too much paint down.
So the paint behind that is still wet.
Oh yeah, yeah. So I'm just putting a soft layer. So hopefully you can see a little bit of red going down over that. And so towards the where the sun is, it gets a little bit deeper. So it's a little bit more red in this area coming through here. It would also hit the landscape a bit. So this can warm up too.
It almost looks like you have a mist over the on the bottom part of the mountain.
Oh, down through here?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get a little bit of the warm light coming down through there. And this will be actually even whiter coming in through here. So I've got most of it covered, but I'm not done, obviously. And then I just start building.
So when you're doing plein air painting, how much of a painting can you usually get done? And I mean, you're amazingly fast with this. You've got a painting within less than 2 hours.
Yeah, I do. I can finish. I mean, let me just grab a drink. I'm sorry. It depends. If I have my concept, it's a little bit easier. And I've painted this painting before, you know, but I can in 2 hours do a plein air painting. Yeah.
Wow.
I don't think the silence is deafening.
So we may have somebody who needs to mute their
Very tough statement.
audio.
You look at the UAE, the Saudis, the Moroccans, the Bahrainis, the Egyptians I think, are busy trying to broker and diffuse some sort of Israeli-Hamas ceasefire. But I just don't see that.
You might have to mute everybody.
Yeah.
This conflict will be resolved or not based on the.
Okay. So I also will take, I don't have enough light on my bottom marshland here. So I'm trying to follow the light. So this is my sun's coming down here. So we're going to get some more color in here. I think I have it a little bit too vibrant right here. So I'm just muting this down a little bit here. But it's a constant kind of coming back and forth of building, you know, and adjusting the colors. So there's more of this light kind of coming down through here. One thing I tell my students too is you need to build up. You have to have a transitional color before you put your really bright lights down. So I just put an orange down that's not as bright as this yellow, so it doesn't jump out at you as much. So you can see that the colors kind of coming in now. And again, I'm just softening kind of, I don't want there to be any harsh strokes. And I will put a little bit of that reflected sun in there. So just line it up.
That's the flat brush, or is that
Yeah.
the?
No, it's a flat brush too. So you can have some fun with this. I've got these small brushes. And this is what I do at the end too. They're more like signing brushes. I have a couple of them here, but now you can kind of go back in and you can kind of play with the length of these reeds. This is a little too dark.
Can you hold one of them up toward the camera?
Yeah,
There you
it's
go.
super
Thank you.
small. It's like
Perfect. It's like a dagger. No, it's smaller.
no, it's I would call it a signing brush.
Signing brush.
Royal and Lango nickel. And so, I play with it this way. So you can create these really thin reeds coming up through here. And sometimes what I do is I come back and let's say I want a hint of that kind of redness coming in. You can put it down here, have it come through here a little bit more. So this is kind of the time to take and make these reeds and kind of pick and choose which reeds you want to highlight. There's also another brush that I'll show you in just a second. So I have fun just kind of coming in here and playing with them. And you want to make sure too that they're not all going in the same direction. And it's good to have some overlapping shapes or overlapping reeds. So another brush that's really great. Let me see if I can find it here. I should have had it here. Oh, I know where it is. It's behind me here. So this one, they might call it dagger, but it's angled. And so this is really fun. So I dip it in, Gamblin has this great gel and it's almost like a liquid, but it's much safer for you. And so you dip it in whatever color you want. And the angles make these fun. So you can do really long shapes like that, or you can mass it in together. You can use this other side of it. So it can make really fat shapes here, or it can be individual reeds coming up. But this is the stuff that you do towards the end. You really have to build your foundation first before you can kind of come in here and do the fun stuff and play with these things. So this is colors in here. So I could get brighter, a little bit brighter in the front. Usually things in front, you can have a little more fun with the color. So I'm putting a little bit lighter green in here. So again, pay attention to vary the sizes, but you don't want to break up the whole, the whole block here. You want to keep your whole structure together. So I could come back in here with that warm color and pretend like some of it's coming through here. And change that line. So you start getting kind of a nice rhythm there. It starts building up. I think I could have some more definition back here, different colors. So I might just take my palette knife. I had a color made up. I'm not sure if this is going to be too light. It is. Let me put a little bit of this in here. So just to kind of get another color back there. Let's see. So it's hard to tell on screen, but I'm getting kind of a lot of texture back here, which is kind of fun. And I'm taking some of the purple from the mountains and putting it back here also and running some warmth over there. So you can get a little bit of a different feel. You want your paintings to have life and feeling. So the more kind of variety you can create, the more interest for people. And again, I'm looking at the cools coming in here.
It adds a lot of depth too, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. You know, and I can even play more with just taking the palette knife and creating more thickness up front here. So when I step away, look how much more this, I'll step 1 second. Look how much more that's reading through here. It's a little thick in this area. So so if you think you put on too much paint, it's not a big deal. Just kind of come back, you know, that way. And I'll put a little bit more on here. I'm putting a little bit more ochre in it. Maybe I'll put a little bit more orange. There's some, the lights come in here. A little bit lighter. So I get the feeling of the light kind of coming through the reeds here. And that's a happy mistake, having that little bit of light coming up through there. So maybe I'll explore a little bit more with that. So if I put a little bit more light, I could have a little bit more dazzle on my focal point there. So let's see if I play with that there. So don't be afraid to kind of get in there. So let's see. Okay, so maybe the sun's breaking through here. And then we've got a little bit of it coming back in here. And then we've got more light coming through here.
I'm not sure I'd ever know when the painting is finished. I'd keep playing with it forever.
Yeah, and that's a problem too sometimes, you know. Yeah, and you just kind of look back and you see, okay, is that working or is it not working? So to me, I like the effect, but I think I can soften it a little bit. This is still a little bit too harsh here. And sometimes these things are a little bit easier to do the next day with a dry brush. So I'm just putting a little bit more orange and lightening it up down here a bit. So the green in the back. I could lighten this up a little bit and put a little bit more of the brown in the back here. So I'm just take my soft brush And it's easy to change that line. Okay. So I made it a little bit lighter back here. And you can see how that changed the line of the reeds too, which is kind of fun. Can't change it too much in value because it's an evening piece. But that gives a little bit more definition there. And so you keep playing with some of the lines here. It doesn't take much to change the shapes, but you want to keep most of the shape together. You don't want to break it up too much. So I think I could have this a little bit thinner in here. I broke this one up a little bit too much. I like these single reeds that kind of pop out through here. But you don't want to make them too repetitive. So I'm breaking up this line a little bit. So I'll probably add a little bit more blue just to cool it down. It's a little bit lighter. And it's not all over. So. I'm just trying to keep the warmth in one area in here. I think I can have a little bit more of the reeds coming down here. All right. So I think I'm getting pretty close there. I might want to tie this in a little bit more to the shape over here, or bring this up so it's not two distinct shapes. Yeah, so I can still keep layering with shapes, but the important thing is just to get these values correct, get them dark enough. You know, my back mountain on the bottom here, I think could be slightly darker. Let's see, right through here. Whoops, that's more than slightly darker. Let's see.
That's the nice thing about oil. It's a little more forgiving that way.
Oh my goodness, yeah. I admire the watercolor artists, you know, because once you make a mistake on something that you've worked really hard, it's very, you know, it's difficult to get that. Whoops, there we go again. It's difficult to get that off, you know, versus with oil painting, you can paint over it and usually save it pretty well. So yeah, I think this is helping just to get it a little bit darker down here. The mountain is backlit, so we want to make sure it's setting down. Just a slight value change makes a big difference in your paintings. So just try to pay attention to that. So I think I did have this a little bit too light. All right. I want to soften this back edge here. Let's see. Yeah, I think it's a little bit better with a little bit darker value back there. So I see I can still make this color here. It's just one color to me. So I can kind of come back here and just put maybe another stroke. A little bit more orange. But yeah, the beauty of doing this, the oil paint, is that you can make a lot of modifications. And I think it's still a little too dark. Yeah, you just have to have a little patience with some of these edges. It does take a while to kind of get them nice and soft. Let's see. Yeah, it's reading a little bit better. All right, I think I'm about there. I might do a little edge of, let's see. One thing you should do is just, like with your paintings, everybody's always scared to try something new. So I try, all the time, just do a little bit extra or something to see if it's going to work. So I'm going to put a little edge of like another value back here. See if that pops a little bit more. So maybe this needs to go over. So, all right. Any questions?
It's just fabulous. It's just amazing to watch how you do it.
Thank you. Yeah, it's hard to stop sometimes.
I imagine.
And one key thing with the reflections is you always kind of want to paint vertically down for the reflections. And then the way they look like the reflections is by pulling the water line over across it. And that's kind of how you get that effect of it being a reflection, like that the reflections underneath the water. Does that make sense? Does that make sense to people, or?
Yeah, sorry, you heard my dog bark in the middle there.
Oh, that's okay. I think everybody's gotten to know everybody's dogs through the Zoom process.
Where is this scene located, Ellen?
I go down to Coyote Hills a lot, and which is over by Fremont. And I've gone down to the Palo Alto Baylands. And so I've just observed the marshes a lot, and also like McCarricker Park up in Mendocino. So I'm looking at this too, and I'm seeing that this ends pretty harshly. So I'll probably put up another couple just small reeds in here. But yeah, I've enjoyed painting the marshlands. So yeah, McCarricker State Park is wonderful. Yeah. And yeah, just even like I pulled across the side of the highway for Don Edwards, and they had this gorgeous sunset. and all the water was lit up this yellow that was really pretty. So even in like small pools of water, if you get the hit the light just right, you get these beautiful colors.
And what color was that establishing the water line, the blue?
Yeah, I just put it's actually more of a purple in here. I put a little bit of purple just to keep some cools down here. Yeah. And you just want to make sure that everything is soft, no hard lines in here, but it kind of balances out the warmth of the sunset too. And the reflection of, you need some of the reflection of the purple mountain, the cool mountain in back coming into the water also. Yeah.
Yeah, the values are really perfect. They're really, they make the sunset look really real.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
So Richard is has to leave from Australia, but it's probably getting to be what, 5 a.m. there or something. But he said to thank you, Ellen, because he.
Yeah, thank you so much, Richard, for coming. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
It's wonderful to be here. It's actually 20 to 10 in the morning.
20 to 10. Oh, that's not okay.
20 to 10 Thursday morning, but I've got to flash out and do something in the city.
Oh, good. Well, thank you for joining me.
Thank you kindly for having me, and it's a wonderful painting, Ellen. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you a lot. Take care. All right, of course, there's one more thing I want to do. I'm just going to soften this back. You know, when you look in the back mirror, I'm just going to soften the back line of the mountain here quickly. So I'm putting a little bit of the red in here. And this makes a difference too. Sometimes you just don't want a hard line across everything.
Richard, are you still with us, or has he checked out?
He might have checked out. Okay.
He is our he has the highest bid on the painting right now, so
Oh, okay.
I don't want him to disappear too far without knowing the rest of his email.
Okay.
Do you know Richard?
I know him from Facebook. I'm a Facebook friend with him, so I can.
You are.
Yeah, but I don't know his email. Yeah.
Okay, so you may contact him on Facebook and and arrange how to get the painting to him.
Okay.
And then he can use PayPal or a credit card on the frankbettecenter.org website to pay for it.
Okay. Yeah, I'll email you afterwards. I'm just, so sometimes just, you know, I'm just varying the back line of the mountain a little bit. So there you go. All right. I think I'm done. So do you want to put me on here? I'll put my face back on, and if anybody wants to.
Yeah, what we can do is off spotlight. I'll spotlight on you and remove the spotlight on
the palette.
I'll take it off the palette here. There we go.
Okay.
So now we have it back on you.
And I'm just going to push the camera back a little bit. Yeah.
Great. And now everyone, you're welcome to unmute if you want to.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions. Thanks again for joining me today. Where are you all of you from? Are you locals or are you from out of town?
Herschel,
is that you? Hey, Herschel.
I'm asking people to unmute. Here they go.
Okay.
And all of you, if you want to turn on your video, you can do that as well. so we can see you. We'll change it to a gallery view here so we can see everybody.
Yeah, gallery view.
Ellen's at the top.
Hi,
Hi, how are you?
good, how you doing?
Very good, thanks. Very good, awesome.
Oh, thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I hope that was, I gave you some good tips and things for painting.
Yes, definitely. You are.
It's amazing to see it done under 2 hours. That's just phenomenal.
Yeah, I actually was looking at the clock and I didn't think I'd finish this soon, to be honest.
Yeah, it's amazing. Hour and a half.
Yeah, I was like, whoa. And yeah, I think with sunsets, one thing that's nice about them too is the color, the values are close. So you're
Mhm.
not mixing quite as many colors. A lot of times, you know, I have more colors on my palette. So yeah, so that's good. Yeah.